Coach Chris Beard talks about this upcoming season, all of the surprises, and growing after a Sweet 16 berth. Yeah, we have all of that coming up next.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. We bring in Ole Miss head basketball coach Chris Beard to give us a primer on this upcoming season. But first, thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen, and please give us a like, subscribe, and comment on your way out, and check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is available to you. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected, that's only the beginning. Stay tuned later in the highlights for this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, it was a really cool interview with Coach Chris Beard. It was nice of him to come onto the podcast. So without any further ado, let's go. All right, we are here with Coach Chris Beard of the Ole Miss men's basketball team. The basketball team is going to open up their season, I think, November 2nd against Sela, Southeast Louisiana. Listen, Coach, the last time that we had the conversation, it was when we were still in the middle of when will Ilias get here and all of that. Now that you've had practice for a couple of weeks, what are some of the stuff that is standing out at this point?
Yeah, I think if I had to describe our team, kind of our identity, what it appears it could be if we execute it, we got a lot of depth. We got a 16-man roster right now. All 16 players are contributing in practice on a daily basis. So from a coaching standpoint, that's a real positive. Above all, that just allows for competitive practices, and practices where you get better, period. I think we're going to have a chance to be a good defensive team. We're athletic, we're long, we got positionless players in a lot of spots. And probably more important than anything, our guys have shown a willingness and a desire to embrace the idea that you got to have a defense to be good in college basketball. So lots of good things going on. But one of the first things that comes to mind is we do have depth.
You know, it's interesting when you look at the roster that there's stylistically some different type players. In the middle of the game, is this basically, hey, I want a plan B, this isn't working, we can change it up this way? Was that the mindset?
Yeah, not necessarily it's not working, but just different ways we can play. No doubt about it. You know, like a lot of football in my mind right now with everything going on this campus and nationally. So, yeah, you got to have a balanced offense, right? You got to be able to run the ball. You got to be able to pass the ball. Got to be able to have explosive plays. Basketball is very similar. You know, you got to have different ways to be successful. So offensively, we have a team that's going to be able to play with pace and space. We're going to be able to push the ball and play in the open floor with playmakers and multiple guys that can play, dribble, pass, shoot. I do think we're going to have an ability to play through the post this year, more so than we had our last 2 years at Ole Miss. Different players, not necessarily bigs, but just everybody on this roster being able to play with their back to the basket. Different ways to play is obviously, good from a coaching standpoint.
With Malik Dia coming back, do you look at him as more of the stretch four, or is he going to be more down low, like using the big frame that he has? What do you anticipate for Malik Dia?
Yeah, definitely both. Look, Malik is he's a big human being. He's a guy that, when he goes and eats in the dining hall, we're always concerned that the football coaches are going to go by there and talk to him, one of those kind of guys. So he's got a tight end's body. And so we need to do a better job as coaches and as Malik himself, executing opportunities around the basket for him, not only scoring, but rebounding and just being a presence. But on the other side of the coin, Malik is Malik. He's a skilled big. And so, with the addition of guys like James and Gusto and Chest, among others, the ability for Malik to play on the perimeter where he's really good, that's not going anywhere. But obviously it's a focus and priority for Malik and myself for him to get a lot more done this year in that paint area as well.
You know, I'm not a super expert guy when it comes to basketball, but I do know this about team sports. It doesn't matter if it's football, soccer, basketball, no matter what. If you can impose your tempo on the other team and make them uncomfortable doing it, you're probably going to be successful. Do you think you finally have the athletes together to be able to impose that tempo on the other team?
Yeah, and I thought we did last year too. Last year's team was good for a reason. So, the word you mentioned, uncomfortable, that's a word that we talk about all the time here. Coach Knight said it best: comfortable, get your ass beat. Uncomfortable is where growth happens. So, in a big picture view on defense, we don't want the opponent to be comfortable. We don't want them to be able to come down the floor and do what they want to do, when they want to do it, where they want to do it. So defensively, it's all about disruption. It's all about trying to be the most aggressive team. And that's a challenge with the teams we got to play against. Same thing on offense. We want to make the opponent's defense uncomfortable. We want to put them in positions where they don't want to be. And so we talk about that a lot. Victory favors the most aggressive team. And we're constantly trying to make the opponent uncomfortable.
You mentioned last year's team, Sweet 16 run and all of that. I know you can't talk about specifics of what's going on, but has there been a significant recruiting bump that came off of that Sweet 16?
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. That's accurate. The best players want to go somewhere where they can win, and the best players want to go somewhere where they know basketball is supported completely. And so last year's team success translated to increase in attendance, sold out games, an energy in our student section that was really, really good. One of the best in college basketball on any given night. And so, yeah, I never get tired talking about last year's team because those guys really paved the way for the opportunity that we have now in front of us.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that the Sweet 16 berth basically tied the best result for an Ole Miss basketball team. And it was in the toughest conference in the history of conferences in the SEC last year. Do you think the SEC is going to be at that level, or is it going to take a step back?
Not going to take a step back. Yet to be determined, whether it's going to be epic and special like that. I think last year's SEC, the first thing, you got to think about is all the returning players in the league. That came back, including on our team with Matt and Brake and Juju coming back, among others. Certainly Auburn returners, Florida, the national champions returners with Clayton and those guys. Recruiting was well last year in the SEC, as the same case this year. And I think ultimately it comes down to winning games. And I think the hype was real last year before the season started, but that's all it was hype. And I think you got to give each team credit, us included, on what we accomplished in the non-conference, how competitive the SEC race was, and then ultimately the final measuring stick is postseason success in the NCAA tournament. And having two teams in the Final Four, multiple teams in the Sweet 16, Ole Miss included. I think that was the final kind of stamp on the confirmation there. The hype was real, the in-season results were real, and then ultimately the national champion came from the SEC.
All right, when we come back, we will have more with head coach Chris Beard after this. But first, this episode is brought to you by Mazda's, moving the game forward for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it is about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, cultures, keep the game moving forward. And this week's moment that moved the game forward was honestly Trinidad Chambliss, the whole thing. It wasn't an individual play. This transfer from Ferris State in the D2 realm was going against the defense that everybody said was the best defense in all of college football. This was undoubtedly going to be the biggest game he ever played in. He was unaffected by that defense en route to an AP National Player of the Week honor and threw for over 300 yards and ran for over 50 yards for the first time in the SEC in over 30 years. Yeah, that includes Heisman winners during that time campaign. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. And it's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVPs on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving money each and every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered the most. Let's break it down. For Ole Miss, William Eccles and Cam Franklin delivered in a really big way. Anytime the defense goes drop 8 and just rushing 3, the defensive line is going to be strained. And the Ole Miss defensive line held LSU to 57 yards rushing in this game. When the pressure was on, they came through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. They are on a streak. And just like William Eccles and Cam Franklin delivered for the Ole Miss Rebels, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season long to get that rebate. Order this Saturday to keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. The promo period runs through November 18th. Do us a favor and like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcatcher you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it helps keep all of this free. If you want more, you can join the Insiders program on the subtext link down below. No trolls, 14-day free trial, and the easiest way ever to cancel, so give it a try. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. All right, let's get back to the interview with Coach Chris Beard on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Yeah, and this season you've seemed to take the next step on the non-conference scheduling, playing Madison Square Garden. You got Miami on the schedule. You have Iowa on the schedule playing in that tournament. You will have Utah or I apologize, I forget the other team. But it's a very impressive non-conference schedule. And the reason I bring that up is for years back in the Stone Ages when I went to Ole Miss, you would hear the coaches talk about that it was just difficult to schedule non-conference for Ole Miss. And is that changed? How exactly did you make that change? Is it just the change in the culture in college basketball, or what about that?
No, it's still very difficult. I can assure you that Kermit and AK would have loved to play Michigan State, North Carolina, Duke, or UCLA, but those games are hard to get. I think the first thing you got to do is you got to be worthy of that opponent wanting to play you. And I think, again, going back to last year's team, I give those guys a lot of credit. Coach Pitino is not going to play Ole Miss just because we're friends. He's going to play Ole Miss if we're a legitimate top 25 team that can challenge his team and put a resume opportunity on his schedule. Same thing with Will Wade at NC State. Will didn't just call down here because we're friends, and him and Berg have been friends for a long time. I mean, Will was looking for NCAA tournament win, criteria. I don't know what the word is, tier 1, phase 1, quad 1, I think it is. So, look, we've gotten the program to the point where quality opponents recognize that, playing Ole Miss would be a good idea. The second thing is just going to be us being aggressive as coaches and making sure that we'll do anything to get a quality game. We'll play anyone, anytime, anywhere. And so, but above all, I just recognize last year's team success opens up windows for quality opponents like an NC State, like a St. John's, that want to play us at this point.
So you talked about stylistically what you were looking at on this basketball team and being able to play different ways. I know we don't want to give away scheme type things like that, but what type of role do you think Ilias could have on this team? Because he's the one that the fan base is interested in seeing because of his European success that he had. What type of player is he, and how has he adjusted to college basketball?
Well, the first thing about Ilias is he's a basketball player. Second to only faith, family, and some academic responsibilities. Basketball is who he is. No different than Eduardo Klafke. I was thinking about Klafke a lot this morning and in film session work with our coaching staff. So Ilias is a basketball guy. It's important to him. He doesn't have a backup plan. It's not, hey, if things don't go well at Ole Miss, I'm going to go to accounting school. That's not the deal. So he has that desire to be great. He has that addiction to basketball that we're looking for, like many of our other players. I mentioned Klafke. Specifically as a player, he's experienced. He's a mature guy, doesn't get too high or too low. And then on the basketball floor, he has some unique skills. He's an elite passer with his vision and his IQ and his willingness to get other people involved. But he's more than capable of scoring the ball as well. And then what we're trying to tap into on the defensive side of the ball, college basketball defense is significantly different than European defense. And so trying to get Ilias to understand what translates, what doesn't, and just trying to get him up to par as quick as possible. One example would be officiating. The game's officiated completely different in college basketball than it is in Europe. And so just educating Ilias on a short curve here to make sure, we put him in a position to be successful when the season starts.
Do you anticipate a big surprise whenever the season gets underway? Is there somebody that you're expecting to take a jump that maybe nobody's talking about?
I think several of our guys are in that category. And I mentioned depth earlier. It's one of the positives we have going around here is our practices are very competitive. On any given day, a player kind of establishes himself as a guy that, hey, man, this guy's going to be in the rotation. And so the competitiveness is good. I think as long as our culture stays intact and we're playing for the guy next to us and we understand we're trying to win a championship here, that depth could be a real ally, a real asset to us. In terms of specific surprises, I think, I'll answer the question. I think our freshmen all have a chance to contribute. Patton's a guy that can really score the basketball. Tylis is a skilled guy. It's just two examples. I could give many others. With our returners, I think every guy's got a chance to improve. And so when you think about Dia and Klafke being good players last year, both those guys have a chance to improve. And so it's exciting when you think about that. We've also got some guys that maybe can expand their games. James was a really, really good player at Louisville. Corey Chess got a lot of good things done at LSU. Kez was one of the best players in his conference at High Point, and I can keep going down the line. But the exciting thing from our point of view is those guys can get better. They can not only duplicate what they've done in the past, but they've got a ceiling of improvement. And so I don't know if those are surprises, but that's where a lot of the internal optimism around here comes from.
You mentioned Eduardo Klafke, and last year, the way it came across from the outside looking in, that occasionally there was confidence stuff offensively, but he played through it and kept getting minutes and made a big 3-point shot against Arkansas. How do you handle a situation to where maybe things aren't going exactly right? What's the balance that you get between, I don't know, figuring out something and loving up a player, so to speak?
Yeah. So Klafke, this is documented. Like, this is true. Like last year in the SEC, 16 teams, there's only a dozen, maybe 11, freshmen that played in our league, that played in every half, that were part of the rotation. And Klafke was one of those guys. And so it starts by just recognizing that he had a special freshman year. The Klafke that I know, confidence was never an issue. Confidence comes through preparation and work. I think Klafke just did a great job as a young guy on a veteran team, fitting in where he could to help the team. And we had a lot of trust in him. I mean, many nights he's in the game late. He's a guy we trusted. And so he did a great job, not good, great, A+. Now the next step for Klafke is a different opportunity. And that's what he's working towards. And we want him to earn that. We can't give it to him. He's got to earn it, but he understands that. So, when I think back on my career, which I don't often, but from time to time when we're recruiting freshmen, we'll have to tell some stories about our freshmen over the years. And Klafke is one of the first I think about. I mean, here's a guy that came in and got himself in the rotation and played meaningful minutes in big games, all the way to the Sweet 16. Now we're all pulling for Klafke around here to take it to the next level, and I'm confident he will.
Yeah, I think we all are pretty confident he will. I'm just excited to see exactly what the next step in his growth, because honestly, the fans that are watching the game probably don't know his game. They haven't seen the fully formed version of that game, and we're probably pretty excited to see that moving forward. So, Coach, you mentioned the freshman class that are coming in, Patton Pinkins, who I believe his dad is an assistant coach on the staff. Tyler Jordan, those guys. You mentioned the scoring the basketball. My question that I would have going into this season, 2 years ago, you had a very offensive team, and you said that this year has a chance to be a very defensive team. Is it a melding of both of those things with the scoring potential that you have on this roster?
Yeah, it needs to be both. Back to football, complementary football. Your offense has to help your defense. Your defense has to help your offense. Your defense has to be your identity if you want to win a championship. Because to win 6 games in 3 weekends, it's never been done where there's 6 A-plus offensive games. Your defense is what anchors it. In our league, you better be hard to score against. You better have a defensive identity to be competitive in the SEC. Offense, it varies from year to year. This year's team is going to be based on our talent. It's going to be based on these guys learning how to play together, sharing the ball, trying to get great shots every time down the floor, trying to get to the free throw line. It's a work in progress. I would confidently tell you our offense is probably going to look a little bit better in February than it does on opening night. But it's just the non-negotiables. If we can have ball security and share the ball and understand shot selection, if we can put our best scorers in space for them to kind of do their thing, that's kind of what we're trying to strive offensively. But our defense has to help our offense. If it takes 80 points to win an SEC game, you better get at least 25% of that off your defense, or it's just really, really difficult to find a way to win.
All right, one more segment with Coach Chris Beard coming up. And, it's a good one, kind of learning what's going on. We're about a month out away from the basketball season. Remember, this basketball season, there's going to be a post-game live stream on this channel. It doesn't matter if we're playing SELA or we're playing Florida. We are going to go post-game after every broadcast. So we will see exactly how that goes. But I do want to tell you, Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you a real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. The swivel screen is an absolute game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without even missing a beat. And the personalized class recommendations help keep you engaged to get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level each week. So let yourself run, lift, and flex and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. All right, you mentioned last year the turnoverless game. I think there was one game where there was one turnover in the game. This team can this team be the 0 turnover team?
Man, that's always a special goal we have, and we talk about it a lot. We're trying to get through practice with low turnovers, but we're also playing against ourselves in practice. So we told the team this yesterday, actually, after practice and post-practice film. We come in here after practice, if we cause 30 turnovers, pretty good day for our defense. But if we come in and we only had 2 turnovers as a team, excellent day for our offense. So that's what makes basketball fun, is that we're practicing against ourselves in practice. And ultimately it'll become, where we're just tired of doing that. We're in week 2 right now of 6. And so, we're desperately looking forward to playing somebody else here soon. But that's what makes basketball cool. You want your defense to be successful every day in practice, but you want your offense too. So what you're looking for is just high-level play after high-level play. We're not there yet. We got a long ways to go, but we're starting to see glimpses of what we could be.
Changing the subject a little bit, have you heard anything? How's season tickets going? How can people get season tickets? All of that good stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. It's a big part of what we're doing. Really appreciative of everything we're building here after 2 years and excited about the opportunity year 3 here to keep going in the right direction. It's my understanding renewals are taking place right now. New season tickets are available right now. Single game tickets are available right now. I'll mention 2 things that are really important. We've got a lot of single game opportunities. One example would be our first 2 SEC home games happen in early January before our student body comes back. So very, very soon, we'll be releasing those bleacher seats where the students normally sit for those 2 SEC games. I know they'll be priced fairly, and they'll be available for everybody. So even people that have season tickets in the mezzanine, they might, buy the bleacher seats, those 2 games, and give their seats to friends and family. Another thing, our student section is the bloodline of our home court environment and atmosphere. As we know, every Ole Miss student can get into games with their student ID, but it's first come, first serve. Last year, the lines were starting to line up even the night before games, so just encourage students to get there early. We know this. Our 3rd home game is against Memphis, a quality opponent, I guess a rival in a lot of ways. A lot of respect for Penny and that top 25 program right down the road. So we're doing things like this. The students will have an opportunity in the exhibition game against St. Mary's, which is on Sunday, opening night, which is on Monday, and then the second game of the year, which is on Friday before a home football game. If a student comes to all 3 of those opportunities, they're going to get priority access into the Memphis game. And so just things like that are going on, marketing wise. The word on all these things will be put out consistently and often on social media, as well as my voice and others. But that's one thing for the students to think about nice and early. Come to the exhibition game in the first 2 games of the year, and you're guaranteed to get into the Memphis game, game 3.
All right. If you're in Biloxi or Hattiesburg and you get season tickets and you can't make all the games, how can that Ole Miss fan put their tickets in the hands of Ole Miss fans when they can't make it to Oxford?
Yeah, the most effective way by far is for that season ticket holder to take the time and energy and just try to find other Ole Miss Rebels to sit in those seats. That's where it's done at the highest rate. Is can that person just take the interest, the time, the responsibility, and we really appreciate when they do that. If you just can't find anybody to sit in the seats, then we have programs in place. If you'll let our ticket office know I'm not going to come on this game, then we can absolutely move those seats. We can't do it 8 hours before the game, as well as we can do it, 4 days before the game. So. But the idea of giving your tickets back to the school, that's a good idea. But a great idea is can that season ticket holder take the time, effort, energy in making sure that their seats are filled. That's the way we're going to crack the code. That's the way we're going to start selling out games every single night, regardless of who we're playing, what time we're playing, is if everybody takes that responsibility and starts filling the seats themselves.
You saw flashes last year of what the pavilion could be. You really did. And I am anticipating an exponential growth this season for Ole Miss. Thank you so much, Coach Beard. And we will talk to you over the course of, I guess, the next few months.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate everything you do for Ole Miss.
Thank you very much. All right. Thanks again for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the front door of Ole Miss. Do not forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it is completely free. Your support means the world to us. In another big moment for Locked On, college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local expert. It's a college football preview show only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Hotty toddy, everybody. Remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.